Well, thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member for Wide Bay for his question. I note, Mr Speaker, the great work the member for Wide Bay has done, especially in regards to road safety, and part of the process of road safety was the upgrade of the Tyro bypass. I remember, Mr Speaker, that he worked with the member for Riverina to make sure that that was the safest possible outcome, because he was very aware of what is most precious in the work that he has done, especially as a policeman, and that's the saving of lives. And infrastructure, Mr Speaker, has been part and parcel of what this coalition government has done and what the Nationals with the Liberals have done, because, Mr Speaker, of the 7.7 million square kilometres that make up this nation, over 5 million square kilometres is held by coalition seats. And there's about 1.5 million square kilometres held by Labor Party seats and the balance by independents. Mind you, 1.35 million square kilometres is one seat. So we have to be very mindful of the length and breadth of this nation and how it does not just reside in capital cities. That's what makes us a coalition government looking after the nation, rather than a Labor government that has forgotten about their regional areas and has retreated back predominantly to the inner suburbs. Now, part of that process of looking after that huge expanse of our nation is the Building Better Regions Fund, and I'd like to thank the Expenditure Review Committee and all those who called for a further $100 million so that we could look after that disparity of what has happened in regards to investments in the capital and investments out in the regions. Mr Speaker, the state coalition government have now invested close to $500 million in one project in the member for Sydney seat. One project, which is an art gallery. But what we have been doing in the coalition is making sure such things as the Hunter Short in the seat of the Hunter Sports Centre at Lake Macquarie, and it was great to go to Lake Macquarie in the seat of Hunter to make sure that they got $10 million so that they could build that facility for what was $25.7 million. A facility, Mr Speaker, that my daughters ran out in the state championships and what Odette did. And it also allowed us to put $5 million to the Swimming, Wellness and Leisure Centre at Palmerston in the Northern Territory. I know the member for Solomon was a great advocate for that project, and also commend the member for Lingiari, who also wrote a letter of support for that project. Or the Barruby Point Aboriginal Place and Tourism Centre in the Labor Party member seat of Patterson, and how important that was. This goes to show that we are focusing on regional Australia, making sure we grow this nation, not in just pockets, but the length and breadth of this great country.
The Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, Mr Speaker, I thank the member for Indi, and I note her passion for making sure that we look after regional areas, and that's the same passion that's shared by my colleagues in the Nationals, and I'm certain shared by many colleagues in regional Liberals. Of course, we are always mindful of making sure that we reach into national seats, into independent seats, into regional Liberal seats, dare I say, also into regional Labor seats, to look after these people, because they're part of our nation. And whether that's in the form of investment in energy projects, or investments in medicine, in medical issues, investments in education, investments in infrastructure that drive those economies forward. You've talked about investments to take the standard of living ahead, and that's why the biggest investment project in this nation is the Inland Rail, which is taking the lives of people ahead. And I also note in your question how you talked about a number. There is no number that we have in any package. I want to dispel this notion that there's some magical number running around. There is not. And what, as you know, Member for Indi, we've both been here for a little while, is just because you read it didn't mean they said it. If you hear them say it, they said it. If you see them say it, they said it. But by gosh, we've all had the experience in this place of reading things which later on turned out to be complete and utter tripe. So, Mr Speaker, we will continue to make sure that mindful of all issues, and not just on this issue, but in our process of being in government. Our process of being in government is to serve the people of regional Australia, is to make sure we make the lives of people in regional Australia better, is to create opportunities so that not only themselves but their children and their grandchildren can have jobs in regional Australia. Our job is to make sure we stand behind the industries and the wealth of regional Australia, because as the member for Indi knows, it is the terms of trade that is generated by regional Australia, the people who put the product on the boat that gives wealth to our currency and turns to our currency, because so much of our lives is determined by what we take off a boat coming in the other direction. And the people who put product on the boat, the iron ore miners, the coal miners, the gas, the cattle, the live sheep, the cotton, the grain, all these products come from regional Australia. And if we don't protect regional Australia, we don't protect our nation. And if we don't protect the strength of our currency, that there is a reason for other people to demand our products, so give wealth to our currency, we will become a poorer nation.
Deputy Prime Minister has the call.
Well, Mr Speaker, I thank the honourable member for a question and concur that we do concern ourselves with regional Australia, the Nationals. That's what we do. That's why we're here. We're a party that are exclusively of regional areas. And so, of course, we're going to be mindful of making sure that we understand the role of this parliament and how lives are affected in regional areas. That is our job. And it'd be, I think people would think a lot less of us if we weren't diligent to the facts, if we didn't take a real sense of prudence to how we have oversight over discussions that could have huge ramifications in a regional area, especially by 2050. And that's that leads me to where your own party is on this and the sort of diligence or lack of it that you have had in attention to exactly what happens in regional areas. And might I pose a question to the honourable member? Might I make a statement? Might I make a statement, Mr Speaker, that if we have got no idea beyond your statement exactly what the ramifications are to the people of Singleton, what the ramifications are to the people of Gladstone, what the ramifications are in Sale, what the ramifications are in Muswellbrook, what the ramifications are in Busselton, what the ramifications are in Longreach, what the ramifications are in Townsville and in Mount Isa and in the Hunter. Because, Mr Speaker, we don't just represent or have a heart for the inner suburbs and then drag regional areas along as something that is taken for granted. We take them to heart. We are totally and utterly focused on regional areas. So I concur that if you are asking, are we prudent, are we diligent, are we making sure we go through this, yes, then we are. And of course the member for Graymer doesn't agree with that.
Resume his seat.